Welcome back to another episode of Raul's World of Synths. I am Raul. Today we're going to be deconstructing the patch that we were looking at in the last series for the A174 joystick controller. If you look at the patch area here in our Doepfer system, you'll see that none of the cables are patched as they were before. There's 4 patched at the very bottom if you look down there. And these are actually going out to my mixer. Let's take a quick look at what it looked like last time. Okay, so just so you get an idea of what we had going on in here, if you're joining us for the first time. So I thought it would be interesting if we kind of jumped in and deconstructed this patch and started from the ground up, so that way you could see how I kind of put this together and some of the sort of challenges and issues that I faced along the way. So without further ado, let's kind of jump right in. We're kind of tentatively titling this the Quadraphonic patch deconstructed. And I'm just going to kind of go line by line on our patch diagram that we saw before. And here's a good shot of it for you. We're going to kind of go through and construct this patch and arrange it so that we get some sound. And then ultimately, at the end, ideally, we should be able to control our sound with this joystick controller. So let's go ahead and start. Now, if you look at our patch diagram, we're going to start with the Y controller. And at our Y controller, you can see right there, it actually has, let's see, 2 cables. One going to the A175 right there, and then the other going to VCA, to an A130. For my purposes, if you look at the system over here, that A130 that the Y is going to, I'm going to actually assign this VCA down here. That's actually a Doepfer A101-2 Vactral low pass gate. I have it set to VCA mode. So that's going to be my VCA number 2. And then just for continuity's sake, I want to mention the VCA that's right over here. If we look back at our diagram, you see the VCA at the top, the very, very top right there under the audio in. That's what I'm going to call VCA 1. It's supposed to be another A130, but I'm using what's in my system. So over here on my system, I have an A131 right here, and this is what I'm going to call VCA number 1. So again, back on the diagram, that's the one at the very top. And then underneath that is VCA 2. And then over here on the system, it's VCA 2. Okay, just want to make sure we got that clear. Now those 2 VCAs are going to be responsible for a stereo signal with our joystick controller. And we'll play around with that before we move forward in the rest of the patch. So let's go ahead and start. We're going to start with the Y output. And we're going to take one of those outputs, and then I think I had it going over into my multiple, if I'm not mistaken. And then from the multiple, we're just going to go out and over into the A175 right there. There we go. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, I think I did not use this cable. So for continuity's sake, let me stick with the cables I used before. So I used the Y cable here, black one. I went up to the multiples. There we go. And then I went out from the multiple there and over into the A175 in the top. There we go. Make sure it's all the way in. Otherwise, that might cause us a little confusion a little bit later. And so that's the first signal. If you look at the patch diagram, it's going into our A175. Now, in our A175, we actually have the convenience of whatever's plugged in the top is actually multiplied here, so I can feed it, somewhere else if I want to. And then the inverted out is actually at the bottom, which that's going to be kind of important. We're going to be sending that over to VCA number 1. If I'm not mistaken. Yes, that's right. Okay. So taking out from here, let's make sure this cable's long enough. Taking the inverted out from here, going down to VCA number 2, or sorry, number 1. Actually, that one's not long enough, so I'm going to need a longer cable. Grab a different one. All right, so we're going inverted output all the way down to VCA number 1. Excuse me. There we go. And we're going right into the CV in. Okay, right there. And then now, if you look back at our diagram, we have a split of our normal A174Y signal that is going all the way down and over to VCA number 2. So that we can actually get from the output that is over here in our voltage inverter, and we can just pass it straight from here, since that should be our normal uninverted Y right there, and take it down into VCA 2. There we go. CV input right there and right there. Okay. So now, let's just take a look at what we got so far before we move on. We got the Y section taken care of. So if you look right there on the diagram, the Y is going over to the A175, and then out the A175 over to VCA1. And if you look at our system over here, you have our Y going out, it's being multiplied. That's not on our diagram. And then it's going in here. And then basically you have two outputs from the inverter. One is the regular signal, uninverted. That's the one in the middle, going down to VCA2. And if you look at our diagram, it is in fact going over to VCA2, uninverted. Okay, and then the inverted is actually going from here, right there, all the way down to VCA1, just like in our diagram. All right, so far so good. Let's continue. We got the Y set up, and we have like, I guess a normal sort of stereo going on there. So let's actually pipe our audio now. And then we'll take, I believe, a short break, and then we'll jump into part 2 of this video. So now let's get our audio source ready. And I think in the last video I used the quantized stored random voltages. So I want to keep that along. But I'm going to do something a little bit different. For our audio source, I want to be able to designate what you're seeing here in the patch. So what I'm going to do for anything related to our audio source, I'm going to use a blue cable. So I'm going to take the clock out from our A154 over here, because this is going to be related to the audio source that's going to be going into our 2 VCAs over here. And I'm going to use that to feed my quantized stored random voltages over here on the far right, going into the clock in right there. And you can see a little bit of activity on the lights over here. So it is outputting random voltages right there. And I'm going to take those random voltages out, and then I'm going to go over to the quantizer right there. Where do we have it? CV in. I'll use the top one. There we go. And then we're going to take the output from our quantizer right there. And then we're going to actually just go straight up into our A111. And I'm just going to go into CV in number 1 right there. Make sure that's all the way in. Okay. And then we're going to take the output of that. And I'm just going to take the saw wave. And then we're going to go up into our A121 at the top, since that is the audio source that's going to be going down into our 2 VCAs. So I'm going over here into the audio input. There we are. And then from there, I'm going to be going out to my 2 VCAs. Now I just took basically two of these filters that I kind of liked and then went down into my two VCAs. So I believe I'd used the notch last time if I'm not mistaken, but if it doesn't sound right, then we'll kind of switch it up. So I'm going to take the notch and I'm just going to go straight down into VCA number 1. We'll just start there. And then we're going to take the low pass. There we go. Make sure it's all the way in. And then we're going to go down to the A101-2 audio input right there. There we go. Okay, so there we have the two sound sources out. Now, in addition, I also had an envelope triggering the frequency cutoff of the A121, and that was via the A143-1 complex envelope generator. So I'm going to have to trigger that envelope in some way. So I believe I was using the random gates from the A149-2. So let me take a random gate. I don't remember which number, so this might sound slightly different than it did last time. So I'm taking number 4, if anyone's keeping score out there. And we're going out from there over into the control input. So there you should see kind of a slight change in the LED, and that should correspond with the gate out that's coming out from number 4 down here. You can see it right there. All right, and then I'm going to take that envelope, which comes out over here. I'm going to go up to the CV input of the A121 right there. There we have it. And so right now it should be firing and it should be going where it needs to. And now, if you look back at our diagram, I think I got everything there. If not, then we'll kind of double back and make sure we got everything. And now, if we look at our diagram, what we got is a situation where we need to start patching it over to a set of 4 VCAs that is going to allow us to move it within the quad space, because right now we basically just have a stereo signal, but we can't hear it yet. So let's go ahead and continue. So we're going to have to take our audio output from our VCA. Let me go ahead and get that set up. And let's see. VCA number 1 is going to have to go out. And then we're going to have to split that signal twice so we can feed it to the A135, and that's going to feed, if you look at the diagram, it's going to feed the top 2 VCAs, what I'm calling VCA 3 and VCA 4. So I believe the way I did this last time is I went over to my multiples here. There we go. And then now I can basically get these two out to over here. So let me get those out. I'm actually out of blue cables, so I'm going to have to do a little substitution here. So we're taking one of the multiples and then going over to signal in right there. And there's our first little glimmer of sound. And you should be hearing it just in one side. And then I'm going to take the second multiple and then go into the signal input number 2. And again, this is in the diagram, it's the top 2 VCAs, which are actually going to be far left in the stereo field for you, and 11 o'clock. So if I move the joystick, we might get a little bit of action. Let's see, 11 o'clock. Yeah, there we go. But no activity up here in the top yet. Okay. So let's keep on going. We have the top 2 VCAs. And then now we need to split VCA number 2 and send it to the bottom 2 VCAs in our diagram over there. And then for that one, I actually used the stack cable out of convenience because I didn't have any multiples handy in this area, which I definitely need to work on. Need to get another multiple over here. So what I need to do is take an output from here, and then I'm going to take it over to audio input number 3. And then in our diagram, that's actually going to be the third VCA down in the top section over there. And then back in our patch, I need to take a multiple out from here. There we go. And then go over here. There we go. Okay, so we got that first part of the patch set up. All right. So now what I think I'm going to do, because we're getting a little bit into the 15-minute mark, is we're going to take a short break. That's a good place for us to sort of pick up in the next video and kind of continue. In the next video, we'll continue by finishing up the rest of the patch, because we haven't patched any of the X control voltage output yet to any of the respective places that it needs to go. So please, hopefully you'll stay tuned for this and see how we kind of put this patch together. So again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.